Welcome to Xi Jinping Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Labor's next great challenge? Finding the right words now we need them most. How would China take over Taiwan? One of these 5 strategies. China's lead vows to boost imports, expand market access. Australia to work constructively with China, PM says. The West must not prevaricate when it comes to seizing Russian reserves. Labor's next great challenge? Finding the right words now we need them most. The Sydney Morning Herald. The current political debate over Israel, Hamas, and Gaza has become a battle over language. Terms such as collective punishment, genocide, ceasefire, and restraint all have specific meanings that are understood differently depending on the perspective. The result is that concrete events are turned into abstract debates, causing citizens to turn away from politics. This, combined with other factors such as the cost of living crisis and the country's economic troubles, has led to a souring of the national mood. The government risks being seen as a government of words rather than action, and needs to focus on concrete achievements that voters can understand. Additionally, the upcoming trial of whistleblower David McBride will test the government's commitment to transparency and integrity. How would China take over Taiwan? One of these 5 strategies. Bloomberg. As Taiwan approaches its next presidential election in January 2024, there is increasing concern about the possibility of conflict in the Taiwan Strait. Chinese leader Xi Jinping's preferred option is coercion below the threshold of war, which includes military activities near Taiwan, disinformation campaigns, cyber attacks, and diplomatic isolation. However, this strategy has not been effective in convincing Taiwan's population to accept unification with China. In fact, Chinese pressure has had the opposite effect, strengthening Taiwanese identity and support for independence. If peaceful unification becomes increasingly unlikely, Xi may consider more escalatory options, such as seizing one of Taiwan's offshore islands. Another option for China is a blockade, which could range from a full-scale physical quarantine enforced by warships and military aircraft to aggressive customs inspections of ships trying to access Taiwan. A blockade would exploit Taiwan's vulnerability as an island nation dependent on imported goods. However, economic deprivation alone is unlikely to make Taiwan capitulate, and it would give the US and its allies time to organize a response. China could also choose to bombard Taiwan with bombs and ballistic missiles to intensify the effects of a blockade. This could destroy critical infrastructure, disrupt supply chains, and break the will of the population. However, there is no guarantee that military punishment will achieve the political objective of convincing Taiwan to surrender to Beijing. The most extreme option is a full-scale invasion of Taiwan, which would require a massive airstrike, sabotage, and attempts to assassinate Taiwanese leadership. This would be a high-risk strategy with no guarantee of success, and it would likely trigger intervention by the US and other countries. It could also lead to a war with a vengeful superpower if China were to attack US forces in the region. Overall, there is no ideal option for China, and all strategies for bringing Taiwan under its control are fraught with risks and potential complications. The best chance for peace may lie in maintaining a high price for aggression while reassuring Beijing that inaction will not result in Taiwanese independence. China's lead vows to boost imports, expand market access. Yahoo! Chinese Premier Li Qiang has said China will expand access to its markets and increase imports. The comments followed the announcement that China's imports decreased by 6.2% in September, the 7th consecutive monthly drop. Li also said China would protect the rights of foreign investors, after a measure of foreign investment into China turned negative for the first time since records began in 1998. Li's comments were made at the China International Import Expo in Shanghai. Australia to work constructively with China, PM says. Deutsche Welle. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has become the first Australian leader to visit China in 7 years. In a speech at the China International Import Expo in Shanghai, Albanese stressed the importance of constructive engagement with China and pledged to maintain a cooperative relationship. The visit focuses on trade discussions, including easing barriers that have impacted Australian exports and settling future trade disputes. China is Australia's largest export market, particularly for iron ore, natural gas, and critical minerals. Albanese also plans to raise human rights concerns, including the detention of Australian nationals, in meetings with Chinese leaders. The West must not prevaricate when it comes to seizing Russian reserves. Financial Times. Western governments have got themselves into contortions in an attempt to avoid the morally obvious next steps, seizing Russia's reserves and deploying them for Ukraine's benefit, warns Martin Sandbu in the FT. Western governments have not been doing all they can to overcome legal obstacles as they claim, which Sandbu suggests are used as vicarious arguments for more self-interested objections. The most important objection is the fear that confiscating Russia's assets will make other non-Western countries pull their own reserves out of the West, in case one day the same treatment could be meted out to them. However, Sandbu suggests that the supposed cost of seizing Russia's reserves is limited and must be held against the economic gains, which include giving Ukraine the financial means to recover and join the EU. Lobster looms on Chinese menus but Albanese hedges on Beijing's trade-pact pitch. The Sydney Morning Herald. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has warned China that it must meet high standards if it wants to join the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP. Albanese made the comments after a meeting with Chinese leaders in Shanghai, in which he received a very positive response from the country regarding its promise to engage in open trade. China has expressed a desire to join the CPTPP but must first end unilateral trade restrictions. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your favorite Sixth Doctor here, bringing you the latest news from around the world. Today, we discussed a range of topics from political language in Australia to China's strategies for taking over Taiwan, and even the importance of seizing Russia's reserves. Let's dive in and analyze these stories. First up, we explored the battle over language in Australian politics. The debate over Israel, Hamas, and Gaza has become a war of words, with different terms carrying different meanings depending on one's perspective. This abstract debate has turned citizens away from politics, making it vital for the government to focus on concrete achievements that voters can understand. Additionally, the upcoming trial of whistleblower David McBride will test the government's commitment to transparency and integrity. Moving on, we delved into China's strategies for taking over Taiwan. Chinese leader Xi Jinping prefers coercion below the threshold of war, but this approach has only strengthened Taiwanese identity and support for independence. While a blockade or bombardment may exploit Taiwan's vulnerability, it is unlikely to make the island nation capitulate. A full-scale invasion would be high risk and could trigger intervention from the US and other countries. Ultimately, there is no easy option for China, and peace may lie in maintaining a high price for aggression while reassuring Beijing that inaction will not result in Taiwanese independence. Shifting our attention to China's economic policies, Chinese Premier Li Qiang has pledged to expand access to the country's markets and increase imports. This comes after a decline in imports for the seventh consecutive month. Li also emphasized protecting the rights of foreign investors, as foreign investment into China turned negative for the first time since 1998. These measures aim to boost China's economy and maintain a cooperative relationship with foreign countries. In a surprising turn of events, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese became the first Australian leader to visit China in 7 years. He stressed the importance of constructive engagement with China and discussed trade issues, including easing barriers that have affected Australian exports. China is Australia's largest export market, making this visit crucial for maintaining a strong economic relationship. Albanese also plans to raise human rights concerns in meetings with Chinese leaders. Next, we explored the idea of seizing Russia's reserves to benefit Ukraine. Western governments have been hesitant to take this step, fearing potential repercussions. However, Martin Sandbu argues that the supposed cost of seizing Russia's reserves is limited compared to the economic gains, including giving Ukraine the financial means to recover and potentially join the EU. It's a morally complex issue, but one that deserves serious consideration. Lastly, we touched on Prime Minister Albanese's warning to China regarding its desire to join the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, CPTPP. He emphasized that China must meet high standards and end unilateral trade restrictions before joining. While China has expressed interest in the CPTPP, the ball is now in its court to meet the requirements. And there you have it, folks. A whirlwind of news from around the globe. Now it's your turn to join the discussion. What are your thoughts on these topics? Do you have any questions for the Sixth Doctor? Share your ideas, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the Sixth Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of Sixth Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.